Senator Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I love this historic, beautiful chamber, especially since the renovation that was done several years ago. Like all of you, it's a great privilege to be able to come and serve here in this historic Senate chamber. But to be honest with you, there's one thing in this chamber I really don't like that much, and that's right up there above the rostrum. It's the state seal. And that's why I'm rising. I know the hour is late, but I think this is an important issue. I'm rising to speak in support of Amendment number 125. This amendment establishes an advisory commission to finish the work of designing, finally, a new state seal, state flag, and state motto for the Commonwealth. I'd like to start my remarks by acknowledging that the land upon which this State House stands is the ancestral land of the Massachusetts tribe. Most residents in our state are probably familiar with our state flag. They likely recognize the white field, the blue crest, the gold figure. But few people stop to consider the meaning of the image on the flag. And that is our state seal, which we display as the official emblem of our Commonwealth on the flag and, of course, in many other places. Our state seal has changed a number of times over the past 400 years. The current state seal, the one above the here in the chamber, was designed by Edmund Garrett and was adopted in 1898. The Native American figure on that seal is a composite of features based primarily on a representation of a chief of the Chippewa Indians. The Chippewa lived mainly in the upper Midwest and not here in Massachusetts. According to Garrett, this figure was selected because he was considered, quote, a fine specimen of an Indian. Above his head, of course, is an arm holding a colonial-era broadsword, believed to be the sword of Miles Standish. He was a military commander for the Plymouth colony, known in part for killing scores of Native Americans. The Native American figure holds a downward-pointed arrow that many interpret as signifying the pacification of the Native population. This imagery on our state seal and on our state flag has long been viewed by Indigenous people and others as racist, symbolizing white supremacy and ethnic cleansing perpetrated against the Indigenous peoples of this region. We have a responsibility to tell the story of our history truthfully. And part of an honest reckoning with our history is to replace images and symbols that perpetuate harmful racist stereotypes, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Massachusetts is now the only state in the nation that still has this kind of imagery on its state seal and flag. In June 2020, the Mississippi legislature voted to change their state flag, which included a representation within it of the Confederate flag. And they had a new design in place by January 2021, 6 months later. Last year, in May 2023, the Minnesota state legislature established their state emblems redesign commission and they did this actually as part of their annual state budget. And earlier this month, their beautiful new state flag was flying atop the Minnesota State Capitol, and I encourage you to take a look at it. Both their state seal has been changed and their state flag, and they're both beautiful. As you all may recall, in January of 2021, Governor Baker signed into law a resolve that created the special commission relative to the seal and motto of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And we had all considered that and voted for that on I believe it was a unanimous vote. Certainly was a bipartisan vote here in the state Senate and also in the state House. This commission was charged with investigating the features of the seal and motto to ensure that they reflect the commitments of the Commonwealth to peace, justice, liberty, and equality, as well as making recommendations for any new design. this commission released their final report in November last year. They recommended unanimously that the Commonwealth should replace the current seal and motto. They also recommended that the new design to replace the current designs should include symbols and terms that are inspirational and, importantly, inclusive of all the communities in our state. Massachusetts, they recommended, should also put more resources towards educating the public about the history and uses of the state seal and motto, and they recommended that a further advisory commission should be convened to carry out their recommendations and complete the work of designing the new seal, flag, and motto. And that's exactly what this amendment does. It establishes this new advisory commission. It places it under the direction and authority of the Governor of the Commonwealth, and it charges them with recommending the new design for the seal, the flag, and the motto within 1 year. The commission will recommend if the seal should continue to be on the flag or if the flag should be a different and distinct symbol. The commission will be authorized to request proposals from professional designers, and they will also be authorized to solicit public input. They'd like to, for example, launch a public competition to solicit design proposals. I think this would be a particularly wonderful opportunity for our students, for example, across the Commonwealth to participate in this process. And then this advisory commission will hold a further public process to allow the public to weigh in on the three finalists, if you will, for the design for the seal, the flag, and the language for the motto. After that final public input, they will then select recommended designs, and the governor will then bring forward legislation back to the legislature to implement those recommendations, and it will, at the end of the day, be the final decision of the legislature, this body, along with our colleagues in the House, to make the final decision on whether to change to those new recommended designs for our seal, flag, and motto. The amendment also provides $100,000 in funding necessary to support the work of this commission. There are many people who I'd like to just recognize for their tireless work on this issue over the years. Former State Representative Byron Rushing. Byron originally filed legislation to change the state seal and motto, probably won't believe this, in 1985. And that's how I came to start working on this issue, because Byron was really a mentor for me when I entered the House of Representatives. Some of you know I was born and my family immigrated from South Africa, and I so admired Byron Rushing's leadership in the divestment movement to bring about the end of apartheid and his championing of racial and social justice issues. And the fact that this was so important to Byron Rushing taught me why this issue is important and we need to get the job done. Representative Rushing worked for many years with John Peters, known as Slow Turtle, who served as the executive director of the Massachusetts Commission on Indian Affairs. And it's actually his son, Jim Peters, who now serves in that capacity. Other legislators that have taken up the mantle more recently, and I would like to thank and recognize, include, over in the House, Representatives Sabadosa and Cabral, and here in the Senate, the senators from Taunton, Senator Pacheco, and the senator from Boston, Senator Collins, in their capacities as the respective chairs of the State Administration and Regulatory Oversight Committee. I appreciate all of their work. We are especially indebted to the senator to my right from Northampton, who I think you all know has been a champion for the rights of our Indigenous communities for, well, certainly all the time you've been in the State Senate, but I suspect well before then. And Senator from Northampton worked with me to craft this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course, and our deep gratitude to all the members of the Special Commission on the Seal and Motto of the Commonwealth. Again, they worked on this issue for several years. I want to especially thank the co-chairs, Brian Whedon and Brian Boyles, and the vice chairs, Brittany Wally and Michael Camo. And of course, also finally want to thank all of the Indigenous leaders from multiple different tribes and Native American organizations for their many, many years of tireless advocacy. Mr. President, our collective symbols of identity matter, and if they marginalize some of our fellow residents, and if they perpetuate harmful stereotypes, then they should be reconsidered and they should be replaced. Today, or tonight, as the hour draws late, I hope the Senate will take another step forward for racial justice, and I ask that when a vote is taken, it be taken by a call of the yeas and nays. Thank you.